Watching everybody react to a crisis is a very, very interesting thing. You never know how anybody's going to act. You don't know how you're going to act by being locked up in your house for 2-3 months or whatever. And we certainly didn't know how anybody in football was going to react. We've discussed the players and wage deferrals or just cutting their wages. We've discussed how the clubs have acted. Some people have acted well, some haven't. We've seen Mike Ashley, we've seen Daniel Levy, sort of almost dropped the moral compass, haven't they, really, by asking the government to fund their employees, bearing in mind they're just worth an absolute fortune. Morally bankrupt, you might say, even though the club is anything other than bankrupt. We've seen people like Potter and, what's his name, Eddie Howe, of course, without any prompting, just off their own back, they've cut their own wages to help facilitate the money going back to the people at the club. It's the right thing to do. As I say, you don't know how you're going to act in a situation. They made morally the correct decision. The players look as though they're going to take a wage reduction. It's the right thing to do, and good on them. But then there's other decisions that we've discussed before. The whole discussion about the Festival of Football, when clearly it's not safe for anybody to go into any form of training camp. And we know, as we discussed yesterday in the Aaron Cresswell video, that the players are scared. So here we are, we get to this point. And so something else has come up. And it happened a couple of days ago. So there are 2 different rights packages that you can buy. They're domestic rights. Now the domestic rights are clearly the rights to broadcast the Premier League games domestically in the British Isles, in the UK. As we know, Sky, BT and Amazon, who had a small package, they had the rights to broadcast in this country. And then you have the overseas rights, which are sort of sold en masse, and everybody gets together, be it Australia, the US, Asia, and they all get together and they bid, and it all comes together as one bulk payment. So you get all of these, you get whatever, CNN, ESPN, and the beIN channel, and Sportsnet, and all these companies from overseas get to show all of the Premier League games. Now, probably at the start of this week, there were rumours that the people who basically collate the overseas package were going to sue the Premier League. Now, as you know, I don't think the Premier League have acted very well at all. But, again, I think it's almost like a morally bankrupt decision. Sue the Premier League. Why? Suing the Premier League because they are failing to meet their obligation of finishing the season, thus providing them with enough games to basically broadcast. Why would you sue them? It's taken all the context out of the situation at all, which is, well, clearly we can't. There's a global pandemic on. We've had to shut down for the safety of the players, the fans and everybody else. Who makes the decision that legal action is required? I thought, well, maybe this is just some sort of out-of-touch thing by an overseas broadcaster or something else. But then we find out a couple of days ago that Sky and BT are considering legal action against the Premier League for the failure to complete the season. Well, they can't. This decision has been taken out of the Premier League's hands. Look, you know and I know that the Premier League want to finish the season. If the government rules weren't in place, let's be honest with you, they'd be having the players out there now, whether they were coughing, spluttering, or whatever. It's the government rules and the new legislation that's been put in place that is stopping them even hosting any form of tournament. So the Premier League want to. So why sue them for something that's out of their control? It's not as if the Sky and BT don't operate under the same jurisdiction as the rest of us. BT are a British company. I mean, that's in the name, isn't it? BT, for those of you that are so young you don't know, stands for British Telecom. That's where BT comes from. So they're under the same restrictions. They've had to close down offices. They're having to abide by the social distancing rules. Yet they think that for some reason, that they're being swindled by the Premier League. Well, it's absolute nonsense. So anyway, I was sort of hoping that common sense would prevail in this. And it looks as though possibly it has. Because BT and Sky Sports have said, look, I'll tell you what, we won't ask for our rebate. Apparently they feel they're owed about 760 million. They probably are, because they have missed games and they need to broadcast games. I'm not denying that they've missed out, but the fact that they first of all threatened legal action rather than saying, look, we're all in a sticky situation here. Can we come up with a little agreement, you know, working into the future where we can sort of get our money back or get some value? It looks as though a deal may well be agreed. And the deal may well be that actually BT and Sky get to broadcast more games next season to make up for what they've lost this season. As you'll know if you watch these videos regularly, it's something I suggested a few days ago. It's the right thing to do. I just don't know. I have no idea whatsoever why they had to threaten the legal action before they made the friendly and common sense decision. It just seems a strange thing to do, to wield the stick before you show the carrot, before you sit down at the negotiating table and come to a compromise of people that going forward you're going to have to work with anyway. It's very strange, and I also find it very strange from particularly somebody like Sky. Now, for those of you that have got Sky, I had to cancel my Sky probably 3 or 4 months ago, before any of this started anyway. We've got the broadband through Sky, we've got the telephone through Sky, the landline. No one's rung a landline in months anyway. No one uses the things anymore. And of course we've got the television. Now Sky, of course, very kindly have said, oh, you can suspend your sports package and turn it into the movies. Oh, whoopee-doo. Thank you very, very much. But the reason I had to cancel it was my Sky was £109 a month. £109 a month. Now, you've got to have the broadband, clearly, for what we do for Hammers Chat, and everybody uses devices. I use the internet, probably more than I use the telly. But it's quite funny, isn't it, how Sky would react in such a thing when Sky are not getting the value that they deem that they deserve with all the football matches. It's funny when the boot's on the other foot, because I certainly didn't ever feel I was getting £109 worth of value from them.